Chapter 7. Ion was killed in rural Moldova when his brakes failed and he plowed into first a gas truck and then a horse-drawn wagon. Nikolai attended the funeral, sent a lavish spray of flowers, and attempted to console the grieving widow who clearly wanted nothing to do with him. He thawed her by whispering that he was establishing a fund for their only child, a 16-year-old son, so his college expenses would be covered. She reached to embrace him, and over her shoulder Nikolai caught Emil Tismanianu's eye. Tismanianu was more than twice Carpathia's age, and dressed and comported himself like the successful businessman and politician he was. Nikolai excused himself from the widow and made his way to Tismanianu for an awkward handshake. "Thanks so much for informing me before raiding my ranks," Nikolai whispered. "Raiding?" Tismanianu said softly with a smile. "It's not like I stole one of your cabinet. I wouldn't do that to you without your knowledge. As quickly as Ion was available, I assumed you knew he was not happy there." "Little gets past me," Nikolai said. "But let me assure you, should I ever come after one of your employees, you will hear it from me first. Don't bother. No one who works for me would want to work for you. They might when I am deputy from Bucharest." Emil stepped back and raised an eyebrow. "Is that an announcement?" "Apparently to you it is." "Your mother is a born-again Christian, Rayford," Irene said. He closed his eyes and rubbed his face. "You don't say. Like you?" "I do say, and yes, like me." "So I'm surrounded." "Yep, might as well give up and give in," Irene smiled, trying to keep things light. "Not a chance." "Rafe, I'm only teasing you. Don't make it a competition where you feel like you would be losing if you decided to do the right thing." "Meaning pray to Jesus and tell him I want to be like you?" "I really don't like when you're sarcastic about this. You know how much it means to me." "I sure do. And you know by now how much that annoys me." "It shouldn't. Your mother was quite—" "So you weren't kidding about my mother?" "No, she was very clear, and—" "My mother is demented, Irene. Alzheimer's is on the horizon. Half the time she doesn't know who or where she is. How can you put stock in anything she says?" "Because she quoted verses and knew their addresses." "Their addresses," Irene explained. "She's pulling memories from her childhood at random," Rayford said. "She doesn't know what she's saying, what she believes, even what she remembers. Her brain is like a jukebox, and the selector arm reaches into her memory banks for a slice of this and a slice of that, putting them together in jumbles that sometimes seem to make sense. I'm surprised you give her any credence." "You should hear her." "That's not fair. You know how busy I've been." "I'm not commenting on your visitation habits, Rafe. I'm just saying you should hear what she says and decide for yourself. You know there are visiting hours every day of the week, even on your off days, even Saturdays and Sundays." "When I'm playing golf, you mean?" "She'd love to see you." "Thanks for that guilt trip." "If the shoe fits—" Rayford stormed from the room. Irene chastised herself. There had to be a better way to communicate with him. Nikolai was intrigued, but also confused. "The Naval Academy has a man in a position similar to what you are seeking," Rika Planchette said. "The Naval Academy?" "I said Army and Air Force." "I just assumed you meant all three." "Really, Rika, how important is a navy to a largely landlocked country?" "Important enough to have a Naval Academy. Anyway, you don't have to attend there if you don't wish to, but that is where I discovered the scenario you outlined. I might like to have all three academies on my resume when I run for deputy. So they have a combination civilian student and instructor?" "In a manner of speaking," Planchette pulled out his notes. An Italian in his middle 40s with a background in religion teaches cadets international diplomacy, protocol, and religious distinctives among various people groups. Name's Leonardo Fortunato. Fortunato, Nikolai said. Does that make him Norokos, a lucky man, or an opportunist? Riker shrugged. I've not met the man. Meet him, feel him out, and see if you think I would benefit from meeting him. But also use his precedent to get me a similar position at one or two or all three of the academies. Irene found Mr. Steele most difficult to talk to. He seemed to look through her, and then, every few minutes, would discover her anew. "My son is a pilot," he said for the fourth time, breathing heavily through his nose and looking all about the room. "I know, and you're proud of Rayford. Do you remember that I am his wife?" "I could use a glass of water, young lady. Now, please." "I just got you one. There it is." He sighed and shook his head, clearly embarrassed. "Thank you." He sat scowling at her. "Do you remember your grandchildren?" He shrugged, then nodded, clearly not comprehending. "My wife died." "No, she didn't. She's here, too. She will come see you later this afternoon." "Does she have grandchildren?" "Of course, the same as you." Irene showed him the pictures. He pointed to Ramey. "Rayford," he said. "Rayford Jr.," she said. "He's going to be a pilot." "He might. That would be fun, wouldn't it?" "My son is a pilot."